History is often presented as an unbroken chain of progress, a seamless transition from one era to the next. But what if the chain has been severed? What if the very foundation of our collective memory has been systematically scrubbed, leaving behind nothing but echoes and shadows? Beneath the polished veneer of our accepted timeline, there lies a profound and unsettling silence, a void where a massive, sophisticated civilization once stood, now reduced to nothing more than whispers in the dark. Observe the remnants scattered across our landscapes, monuments of impossible grandeur that defy the narrative of a primitive past. We see massive stone bastions, intricate star forts, and ornate, vaulted halls that suggest a level of engineering far beyond the capabilities of the era's documented tools. These architectural anomalies are the fingerprints of a masterclass, lingering fragments of a sophisticated way of life that the textbooks simply cannot explain. Beyond the mere physical structures lies the mystery of a forgotten science. Evidence points to a vanished mastery over the very air we breathe, a way to harvest the currents of the atmosphere and turn the sky itself into a boundless reservoir of power. This was a period of profound synergy, where the boundaries between human ingenuity and the Earth's natural energy were virtually non-existent. Yet, the archives of the modern era are conspicuously silent on these triumphs. Instead, we find a landscape of architectural anomalies, monumental works that seem to defy the primitive tools of their supposed era. It is as if a deliberate hand swept through the annals of history, scrubbing the records clean, leaving only these stone whispers behind to haunt our understanding of the past. Consider the geometric precision of the star forts, scattered across distant continents like breadcrumbs of a forgotten empire. From the Americas to the edges of Eurasia, these intricate bastions share a singular, unmistakable blueprint. This uniformity suggests something much more profound than mere coincidence. A unified, global civilization that operated under a single, shared architectural logic, long before the maps of the modern world were ever drawn. But the true enigma lies not in the stone, but in the unseen forces these structures were meant to harness. Observe the ornate copper spires and the heavy, metallic ornamentation of the era's most prominent landmarks. They appear less like mere ornaments and more like functional components, sophisticated antennae designed to harvest the immense, invisible energy of the ionosphere. This was a mastery of atmospheric electricity, a lost science of wireless power that once pulsed through the very heart of the world. Imagine a city where every street lamp, every fountain, and every grand plaza functioned as a node in a singular, luminous grid. This wasn't merely about distribution, it was about a synchronized resonance. The very foundations of these metropolitan centers were infused with conductive materials, turning entire urban landscapes into living, breathing circuits. In the daguerreotypes of old, we see traces of this brilliance, faint, ethereal glows captured on early photographic plates, suggesting a world bathed in a constant, ambient radiance that required no cables, no poles, and no centralized power plant. But how did this unseen current reach the furthest reaches of the map? The secret lies embedded within the very masonry of our most ancient landmarks. Look closer at the impossible precision of the stone cutting, the seamless, monolithic joins that defy the primitive tools of the established timeline. These grand structures were far more than mere monuments of prestige. They were the precision-engineered components of a planetary-scale mechanism, meticulously crafted to harmonize with the terrestrial vibrations of the world itself. Observe the sprawling iron and glass cathedrals of the Great Exhibitions, where a global network of light was momentarily unveiled to the masses. These gargantuan, translucent structures appeared almost overnight across disparate continents, acting as the grand showrooms for a technology that tapped into the very essence of the atmosphere. Yet, following a period of unprecedented architectural expansion, a sudden shroud of silence descended, as if a deliberate hand had reached through time to sever the connections of a brilliant, forgotten age. To find the truth, one must look beneath the surface of our modern metropolises, where the remnants of an older world lie entombed. Scrutinized closely, the foundations of our grandest capitals reveal unsettling anomalies. Ornate, heavy masonry and decorative windows half submerged beneath the current street level, as if the earth itself rose to enter a more advanced epoch. These architectural scars, paired with the sudden disappearance of vast territories from our historical atlases, suggest a systematic scrubbing of the global record, a grand revisionism designed to obscure the true lineage of our civilization. Beyond the physical ruins lies the evidence of a lost science, a period where humanity harnessed the very ether. Vast, spire-topped structures stood as nodes in a global energetic web, tapping into atmospheric currents to power a civilization of unparalleled harmony. These were not merely monuments to vanity, but active components of a planetary circuit, pulsing with a resonance we have long since forgotten. Yet, the records of this technological zenith were not simply lost to time, they were systematically silenced, leaving us to wander a world of disconnected remnants, unaware of the immense, unseen power that once flowed through the veins of the earth. This was a war of narratives, fought not with steel, but with ink and parchment. Across the globe, the cartography of our ancestors was systematically overwritten. Borders were redrawn, ancient provinces were stripped of their names, and the very identity of the land was rebranded to serve a new, fragmented order. We are viewing a curated reality, a meticulously constructed history where the true boundaries of the old world were obscured behind a veil of manufactured confusion. It wasn't just the maps that were altered, it was the very records of human achievement. Great repositories of knowledge were reduced to cinders, and the stone monuments that once spoke of advanced, unified capabilities were stripped of their true meaning. Every relic, every inscription, and every archive was subjected to a process of systematic deconstruction, leaving behind only the hollowed-out fragments of a truth we are only now beginning to piece together. A veil of manufactured ignorance descended, casting a shadow over the true utility of the world's grandest engineering. The vast, energetic conduits and immense atmospheric collectors were stripped of their operational identity, relegated to the status of mere architectural curiosities. In this era of profound confusion, the very engines of progress were rebranded as ornamental relics, their true, energetic purpose hidden in plain sight, disguised as the decorative whims of a primitive age. The erasure required more than just silence. It demanded the systematic destruction of physical evidence. Cartographers were commanded to redraw the world, dissolving entire landmasses and sovereign borders into the depths of the sea. Libraries, once the repositories of a global truth, were purged of their most damning proofs, their contents replaced by a sanitized, fragmented narrative designed to serve a new, fractured reality. The very ink of history was rewritten, leaving behind a curated void where a unified, advanced world once stood. As the old structures crumbled, a new, rigid architecture of control began to rise. It was an era of unprecedented standardization, where the chaotic beauty of local customs was paved over by the heavy, uniform hand of progress. Every clock was synchronized, every law codified, and every boundary reinforced, weaving a web of unseen constraints that tightened around the collective consciousness, turning a world of sovereign wonders into a landscape of regulated, predictable, and compliant territories. But the restructuring went deeper than mere administration. It moved into the very stone and mortar of the world. Grand, ornate monuments were systematically deconstructed, their intricate geometries stripped and repurposed to serve the mundane needs of the rising order. This was the Great Physical Purge, a period where the monumental evidence of a lost epoch was buried beneath the foundations of the new, leaving only the fragmented, hollowed-out echoes of a vanished majesty. Beyond the physical destruction lay a more insidious campaign, the scrubbing of identity from the world's very maps. As borders shifted and empires dissolved, the names of once mighty provinces were systematically overwritten. This linguistic cleansing ensured that even if a trace of the old world remained, its origins would be unrecognizable, lost within a newly manufactured geography designed to facilitate forgetfulness. Yet, stone and mortar possess a stubborn memory. Amidst the rewritten borders, monolithic structures and intricate, grand-scale architecture stand as silent, inexplicable anomalies. These silent titans, often dismissed as mere relics of a localized past, possess a level of precision and scale that defies the primitive tools attributed to their supposed builders. They are the physical scars of a civilization that refuses to be entirely silenced by the stroke of a cartographer's pen. Beyond the mere artistry of the masonry, a more unsettling purpose begins to emerge. Look closely at the intricate metalwork, the tapering spires, and the conductive copper plating crowning these ancient peaks. These were not merely ornamental flourishes of a bygone era, but functional components of a highly advanced, perhaps even forgotten, energy harvesting network, a sophisticated, wireless interplay with the very atmosphere itself. Yet, the true enigma lies not in the technology itself, but in the systematic scrubbing of the historical record. This was no accidental loss of knowledge, it was a calculated campaign of revisionism. Footnotes were deleted, borders were redrawn, and an entire civilization was rebranded as a mere myth, leaving behind only the silent, stone witnesses that no amount of censorship can fully erase. Buried within the wreckage of antiquity, anomalous and out-of-place artifacts serve as undeniable proof of a far more complex history. These misplaced relics suggest a level of sophistication that directly contradicts the primitive timeline we have been taught. The evidence is etched into the very foundation of our most iconic monuments. Colossal masonry, seamlessly fitted and impossibly heavy, stands as a silent testimony to a lost era of construction. These structures, scattered across the globe, display a precision and scale that suggest a mastery of engineering far beyond what we are taught was possible during those supposedly primitive ages. But look closer at the intricate ornamentation. Tucked within the gilded domes and copper-clad spires, they're traces of a sophisticated, forgotten science. These metallic elements suggest a purpose far more functional than mere decoration, hinting at a world where energy was harvested directly from the atmosphere, turning every great hall into a pulsing node of a global, wireless network. Beneath the bustling streets of the world's oldest metropolises lies a silent, stone-clad secret. Observe the lower levels of grand 19th century structures, windows and doorways that sit unnaturally close to the pavement, as if the earth itself rose up to swallow them. This widespread burial of urban foundations points to a period of catastrophic upheaval, a moment when the existing landscape was not just altered, but physically entombed, leaving behind a blank slate for a new, curated era of human history. Alongside this geological shift, a deeper, more insidious dissolution occurred: the dismantling of the human story itself. The threads of our shared ancestry were severed, replacing a unified heritage with a manufactured and fragmented mythology. This void in our collective understanding left us with a history that is fundamentally broken, stripped of the very context required to understand it. Amidst the gaps in the official chronicle, certain architectural anomalies persist, structures that refuse to conform to the primitive technological narrative of their supposed era. Massive, ornate edifices, adorned with inexplicable geometries and colossal stone works, stand as orphaned relics of a forgotten mastery. They are the unerasable signatures of a lost blueprint, silent witnesses to a sophistication that the current timeline simply cannot account for. Scrutinize the maps of centuries past, and a ghostly landscape emerges. Vast territories once labeled with names, now scrubbed from the modern atlas. These cartographic echoes suggest a global interconnectedness, a unified world linked by a network of advanced, atmospheric energy distribution that even our current science struggles to replicate. It was a unified, pulse-beating system, now reduced to mere decorative elements on the spires of an abandoned era. Look closely at the architecture of our oldest metropolitan centers. What were once magnificent nodes of a global energy grid were systematically hollowed out, their grand purpose obscured by layers of utilitarian renovation. These monumental halls, now serving as mere transit hubs or administrative centers, stand as silent witnesses to a profound structural deception, where the monumental was masqueraded as the mundane. It wasn't just the stones that were altered, the very records of our existence were purged. Cartographers of old mapped a reality that no longer appears on our modern globes. Across centuries of archives, a deliberate void has been carved, leaving us to wander through a landscape of redacted geography and silenced lineages, where the edges of the known world were systematically retracted from the collective consciousness. Deep within the layers of suppressed history, a phantom energy once pulsed through the veins of a global network. We are looking at the remnants of a lost science, an era of atmospheric mastery, where the very air served as a conductor for a forgotten power. It wasn't merely a loss of territory, but a loss of the fundamental understanding of how we interact with the cosmos. The blueprints of this vanished era suggest a way of life where energy was free, and the skies were alive with a resonance we can no longer hear. Beyond the physical structures lies a more insidious crime, the systematic scrubbing of the cartographic record. The borders we recognize today are not the natural evolutions of nations, but scars left by an intentional editing of our collective memory. It was a global purge, where entire civilizations were unmapped and stripped from the annals of time, leaving behind only the fragmented echoes of a reality we were never meant to remember. The theft was not merely territorial, but intellectual. Great repositories of advanced understanding, technologies that once harnessed the very ether, were recast as mere myth or superstition. The archives were silenced, the blueprints for a unified, energetic world dismantled, leaving us adrift in a dark age of manufactured scarcity and forgotten potential. Look closely at the architectural anomalies scattered across our modern landscapes. Grand, impossible structures, adorned with intricate geometries and heavy stone, stand as silent witnesses. They are the architectural orphans of a forgotten era, their scale and complexity far exceeding the primitive tools and primitive knowledge credited to the generations that supposedly raised them. These are not merely monuments, they are the physical scars of a monumental disappearance. What if the void in our historical records was not a natural accident, but a deliberate act of systemic redaction? Imagine a coordinated effort to scrub the archives, purging entire civilizations from the collective memory through the controlled destruction of truth. We are left to sift through the debris of a deleted timeline, attempting to reconstruct a reality that was systematically overwritten by those who hold the pen of history. To truly comprehend the scale of this disappearance, we must learn to look beneath the veneer of our modern landscape. It is a grueling pursuit, attempting to pierce the heavy layers of the present to uncover the original script of our planet. We are like explorers navigating a landscape of shadows, hunting for those faint, uncorrupted echoes that manage to survive the massive physical and cultural restructuring of the globe. Look closely at the grand, ornate structures and marble halls that still punctuate our modern cityscapes. Their design suggests far more than mere ornamentation. They whisper of a lost mastery over the very elements. These monuments, often dismissed as mere relics of a simpler age, pulse with the silent, energetic remnants of a sophisticated, forgotten science, a technological zenith that seemingly vanished almost overnight. This wasn't a mere lapse in memory or the natural erosion of time. It was a calculated pruning of the human record, an intentional orchestration of silence where entire eras were scrubbed from the archives and the vast, interconnected legacies of a global civilization were dismantled, replaced by a sterile, disconnected timeline that serves only the present. It was a masterful sleight of hand, a rebranding of reality itself. Great monoliths, once vibrant centers of unseen energy, were stripped of their true function and recast as mere ornaments of civic prestige. We see the fingerprints of this deception in the way massive, complex structures were labeled as newly constructed, marvels of a modern age, their true, ancient origins masked by the heavy shroud of a fabricated industrial dawn. To understand the true scale of this loss, one must look into the void left within the archives. Great libraries, once repositories of global truth, now contain only shadows and redacted lineages. Entire regions, once mapped with precision and flourishing with life, have been scrubbed from the cartographic record, leaving behind nothing but blank spaces and the haunting silence of a forgotten era. Look closer at the foundations of our modern cities. Notice the ornate windows half submerged in the earth, the grand, arched doorways now serving as mere basement entrances. These architectural anomalies are not mere design choices, they are the silent, physical testimonies of a world that was physically overwritten. Stone and mortar speak where the written word has been silenced, revealing a structural continuity that the textbooks refuse to acknowledge. The erasure was not a single, sudden event, but a systematic scrubbing of the global record. Maps that once depicted vast, unified territories were redrawn, borders were shifted, and the names of once mighty provinces were blurred out of the ink. Every era of academia serves to reinforce the current narrative, carefully curating which legacies are preserved and which are relegated to the shadows of myth. To find the truth, one must look between the lines of the official chronicles, where the gaps in the timeline pulse with the presence of a deleted past. The evidence remains etched in the stone. Grand, neoclassical structures with impossible masonry stand as silent witnesses to a lost ingenuity. Spires that once pulsed with unseen currents and foundations half buried in the earth, as if a sudden, violent deluge attempted to swallow the evidence whole. These architectural anomalies are the fingerprints of a civilization that operated on principles we have been taught to forget. But physical destruction is only the first step in a systematic deletion. To truly bury a legacy, one must strike the names from the chronicles and scrub the cartography of its truth. We find ourselves staring into the voids of our archives. Vast, unexplained gaps in the global timeline where an entire era of human achievement was replaced by a carefully curated narrative of discovery and pioneering, leaving us to wander a history that has been intentionally hollowed out. Look closely at the remnants that survived the purge. Beneath the layers of modern rebranding, architectural anomalies persist. Spires, intricate masonry, and grand structures that defy the technological limitations of their documented age. These are the fingerprints of a forgotten advanced civilization, whispers embedded in stone and metal, waiting for a keen eye to recognize the impossibility of their existence. This was no accidental decay of memory, but a systematic campaign of informational suppression. Through the targeted destruction of archives, the alteration of cartographic boundaries, and the forced rewriting of academic canons, the continuity of our heritage was severed. The evidence was not simply forgotten, it was intentionally purged, replaced by a curated narrative designed to obscure a global legacy that once unified the world. Yet, the erasure was never absolute. Scars of the old world remain, etched into the very skyline of our modern cities. We see it in the impossible scale of neo-classical monuments and the inexplicable complexity of grand, vaulted halls, structures that seem to defy the technological limitations of their supposed era. These architectural anomalies are the fingerprints of a departed civilization, stubborn, stone-carved remnants that refuse to be smoothed away by the tides of manufactured history. The evidence lies hidden within the very maps we use to define our reality. Examine the cartography of centuries past, where vast unified territories once spanned the globe under a single, enigmatic name. One by one, these expansive realms were fragmented, their borders redrawn, and their names systematically purged from the atlas. This wasn't merely a change in political boundaries, it was a meticulous, coordinated campaign of historical revisionism, a deliberate scrubbing of the global record to leave us adrift in a rewritten landscape. Peer closer at the architectural anomalies scattered across the continents. Grand cathedrals, intricate star forts, and monumental civic structures defy the primitive tools and primitive societies attributed to their era. These stone giants stand as silent, incongruous witnesses to a level of engineering and mastery that our modern textbooks claim never existed. They are the structural echoes of a sophisticated civilization, left behind like the heavy, beautiful debris of a collapsed sky. We must look beyond the stone and into the archives themselves. The disappearance of this era was not a passive fading, but a coordinated scrubbing of the global record. Archives were purged, maps were redrawn, and the very lineage of human progress was systematically rewritten, leaving us to wander a landscape of curated truths and manufactured amnesia. Yet, despite the silence of the textbooks, the truth remains etched into the very skyline of our modern cities. These monumental spires and vaulted halls are not mere relics of a primitive age, but silent stone witnesses to a forgotten brilliance. To reclaim our history, we must learn to read the language of the architecture itself, unearthing the echoes of a civilization that refuses to be entirely forgotten.